All right. Hello, everybody who's joining in. Thanks so much for joining in. I always like to get started a couple minutes early just to make sure everything is up and running. A few things to note for you. Sometimes we hear people who have a feedback loop. In fact, I'm getting one right now myself. Whoops. Hold on. There we go. So my audio sounds good. I can hear it on my end. But if you're getting a feedback loop, sometimes we've had people who leave their microphone on. That happens. The other thing I'd like to say to everybody is if ever you have buffering issues, sometimes we have agents who join in from their, what they call their bullpen in their office, their shared office space. And the internet there can be a little spotty, and we're together for a little while here. So if that's an issue, my first recommendation is always to try a refresh. Sometimes, to be honest, you might just open this up on your phone and watch it there too. Keep in mind, this is YouTube, so you can watch it anywhere. At the same time, often people will ask, is this something that is recorded I could watch later? Yes, in fact, it is recorded live. So if you need to pause it for a moment and step away and come back, you can do that. And then you could rejoin us live or rejoin it where you left off. So with that said, I'm just going to bring it back over to here, and I'll just let everybody in the chat know. Give me 1 second. Hi, everyone. We are on air. If you're not seeing this, seeing the feed, try a quick refresh. Great. All right. So let's get started. Today, I'm really, really excited about this session because we're talking here specifically about marketing your listing like a luxury agent and elevating your exposure. And one of the things when I talked to the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing is I said they do some of my favorite webinars, and I referenced their webinars actually quite a bit. So they give a lot of great insight. And Tammy herself, who's on the line, Tammy, you're here, right?
I'm here.
Awesome. I should double check that. But so Tammy, who's on the line, has given some really great advice, really great stories, and something that, to be honest, I reference all the time. And one of the things we wanted to do today is kind of say, hey, let's try to capture a little bit of a wider audience. So that's why we decided to talk a little bit about marketing as a luxury agent would. Now, again, most of you have introduced yourself in the chat box. I appreciate it. I love it. Don't be afraid to keep chatting. We love to see it. We will have some time for questions nearer the end of the webinar. And I see some people coming on as we go. And as mentioned, this webinar is being recorded. So you can always find these in the RLP network as well under the training, webinar training, and sales success. You'll find all our past sales success webinars there. Now, this webinar is a little bit in conjunction with the Carriage Trade Luxury Properties program that we have. So the Carriage Trade Luxury Property Marketing Program is really about offering, you can see, promotional and training resources for carriage trade for luxury brand listings. So certainly we're talking luxury. Certainly carriage trade is something to keep in mind. If you haven't found out about carriage trade or want more information, actually the email that we send out to you after the webinar will include some additional information about carriage trade. Carriage trade is as a part of Royal LePage. There's no additional anything from you guys. It's a part of what's included with it. And so with that, I really want to get to the content. And thanks everybody for chatting in. I'm seeing a lot more chatting in. So thanks for chatting in. I love seeing it. I'm seeing some West Coast BC, some Montreal, Niagara region. So I do like giving our presenters a little bit of context because it helps them, when they're talking to people. Now, Tammy Sims is our presenter today, our expert trainer from the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing. Like I said, she's done a number of webinars with us, and they are one of my favorites for sure. She's definitely a real estate marketing expert, accomplished trainer. She has a background in advertising as a concierge at a luxury resort, which gives her real insight on reaching and servicing the luxury consumer. Her experience selling luxury real estate ensures that she understands the challenges faced by residential sales professionals in today's upper tier market as well. So she has a background in delivering luxury service as well as being a realtor in the luxury market. She's trained with the Institute, with Institute founder Lori Mormore, presents the Institute's 2-day training with energy and expertise, which I can assure you she will bring to this webinar. And I give her an outstanding review. Audiences give her outstanding reviews. I'll tell you that, Tammy, right now. I love your webinars. They're awesome.
Thank you, Mike. No pressure, right?
The bar's high. You'll exceed it. I know you. $1 Million Guild member of the Institute, holds her certified luxury home marketing specialist designation, certified residential specialist, certified international property specialist designations. She's got a lot of information to share with us. And with that, I want to turn things over to you, Tammy.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. It is a pleasure to be back with you. And really my pleasure today to spend a little time talking about specifically marketing your listings. And interestingly, when we talk about market your listings like a luxury agent, we want to talk about treating every listing like a luxury property. So for those of you in markets that your price point is not quite as high as the carriage trade standards, we're giving these ideas to you as well that you can apply across the board, because luxury really is it's a special thing. It doesn't necessarily mean price point. So today we want to talk about effectively marketing your properties to qualified local and international buyers. If you're like me, you encounter sellers who always say, how are you going to reach the international buyer? Because I'm certain that it's going to be somebody from elsewhere in the world that's going to buy my property. And while that is in many cases and in many markets very true, I think making sure that we maximize our local exposure to find those folks within our marketplace who either could be the buyer or who know someone, are connected to someone who could be the buyer. I think that's really important. So we're going to take some pieces of what really is days and days and days worth of material and information about marketing listings and try to present it to you in a kind of a bite-sized morsel today. So there's much more to go into, but hopefully we'll hit some highlights that will help all of you. So strategies and techniques that we're going to talk about throughout the course of the webinar, we're going to go through a couple of different stages. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is understanding your seller's expectations, because I think that that's a really important place to start. And then we're going to talk about defining the right audience. It's niche marketing versus mass marketing, particularly as the properties become special and more expensive. Then we'll spend a few minutes talking about how you build the right story. It's a very, very important part of your marketing is to tell the right story. And then creating and implementing the marketing plan, right? It really should be a concrete plan. And we'll talk a little more about that as we go. So let's start with understanding your seller's expectations. And I'm going to use some data that's specific to luxury sellers. And these were home sellers who had experienced their transaction at $1 million or more US dollars within the last 2 years. And so they were surveyed to ask what their expectations were of their real estate marketing. And there's a caveat here. This is not going to be a list of the things that actually got the property sold. This is a list of things that the sellers expected. And so I think we all understand the phrase seller satisfaction in some of the things that we do in real estate marketing. So these are things that I want you to pay attention to. In order, as they completed the survey, in order of importance, the very first expectation was internet exposure. And this is kind of a broad wording of that, but what we're talking about is lots and lots of photographs and information and links. The internet is our ability to market a property where we're not constrained by a number of characters or by the size of an ad. So they're really expecting good internet exposure. And I think that most sellers, and here in this particular survey, it proved to be true, that they understand the value of your multi-list in terms of reaching a broader audience. And so what I have to say there is not all property listings are the same. You probably would agree with me that sometimes listings are either incomplete or not necessarily accurate or don't give enough information. So please make sure that when you are entering your property listings, that you are providing as much information as possible, both for other real estate professionals and for the public, and that it is accurate and complete. This will go a long way in satisfying your seller's expectations. I also like to make sure that I double check periodically to make sure that everything is still the same, because sometimes things slip, and certainly in automatic propagation, we need to check and make sure that that links haven't been broken. Now, number 3 on the list of sellers' marketing expectations is the special open house for luxury agents, in this case, specific to luxury. And this is what you might refer to as the broker's open house. But as the properties become more unique, you may consider not doing the ordinary afternoon type, but something that really is a special VIP invitation only event that is specific for real estate professionals that are working in the same price point as the house. And I know that sometimes it's difficult to get good attendance, so it's important that you employ some strategies to really make it appealing for folks to come. But it is high on the list of sellers' marketing expectations.
And so, Tammy, that's what I wanted to ask. So that just, you're saying pretty much your luxury sellers are saying their third most important thing is we expect you to do a special open house for other luxury agents.
Absolutely. And I think
Gotcha.
that
Oh, cut out a little bit. We'll see. Hold on. Bear with us for a quick second here. I'm going to make sure that we're okay.
Another real estate professional who actually brings the buyer, as opposed to...
Sorry, Tammy, you cut out a little bit there. And I will say Tammy is in Florida, so she's got some... she had to make a few concessions here, so keep that in mind. But
Sure.
Sorry.
Well, let me just make sure that everything is plugged in tight on my computer. Is it coming through clear now?
Yeah, it just cut out for a quick second there.
Okay, all right. Well, and to that point, Mike, I will tell you that in addition to the loss of power for a week or more, many of the cable and internet providers have been down. So I'll chalk that one up to having a little interference on the line that's outside my control. So are we good to move on to the next point, Mike?
Yeah, but you were saying, so I just said like the third, this is what the sellers are expecting, and you were making a point in terms of that, and I just wanted
right. And so the point about the special open house for Arena has everything to do with their recognizing that we need to participate with other realtors, that it's probably not going to be the same realtor who's going to double side, double end the deal, but they want to make sure that their property is being exposed to all of the other realtors who are working actively in that marketplace.
Gotcha. And now, Tammy, it looks like we've lost your presentation, so if you could just present again. It was weird. It kind of restarted. So
sure. Oh, that is very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Can you see? All right. Can you see my whole screen now? Am I still screen sharing?
No.
All right.
No. Yeah. Try it. Try stopping the screen share and restarting it. Let's see. Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah. Sorry, we have not.
There we go.
All right. Let me get back to here. All right.
Yeah.
And are you good?
We should be back up and running. Looks good. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Okay. All right. Sure. Sure. That's the first time that we've had any technical difficulties.
I know. Usually we're good, eh?
Yeah. Well, I suppose.
For everything.
That's right. That's right. All right. So definitely special open house for luxury agents. So the next thing of importance is they're looking for really high quality printed property brochures. And this is something that I think in our industry we can always improve on, and we always need to be looking to have a really high bar set for the way that we're presenting our properties in print. And so think, if you will, if you're shopping for a luxury automobile, think about the brochure that the dealer's representative hands you. Think about the price of that purchase versus the price of a luxury home. And then think about the quality of materials that we tend to have in our industry. And so I think that we've got a great deal of improving to do. And so we always need to keep that in mind. Really high quality printed property brochures. And I'll show you some samples of what I think are some good examples here shortly. Now, another thing that they're looking for, number 5 on their list, is a special property website. And that can be a standalone property website or one that is actually on the back end of your own firm or personal website. But they want a site or a page that is dedicated specifically to their property. Now, another thing that they're interested in, and we see this more at the highest price points, and that is what we refer to as the real estate soiree. You could call it the party to sell the house. And this is different than the special broker's open house for other luxury agents. This is actually a VIP event with a targeted invitation list of the best prospects. And so this is really something that that we dig into in the training class of some ideas of how to do these. But think, if you will, of luxury VIP marketing for the Masters Golf Tournament or Art Basel in Miami. Event marketing really works in the upper tier. So think about some ways that you might be able to do that. And yard signs, as simple as that might seem, it does appear in the top 10 list of sellers' marketing expectations. And I will say that as the price goes up, you also have the expectation of perhaps the luxury brand signage. So, for example, the carriage trade sign versus the standard yard sign. So make sure that that's high on your list if, of course, you're in a neighborhood or an area where yard signs are permitted, because I certainly realize there are some somewhere that is restricted. Now, luxury home magazine ads. This is something definitely that shows up on every seller's satisfaction list. And regardless of the percentage of likelihood that the buyer is actually going to come from that ad, the sellers expect to see their home showcased in beautiful quality publications. And what you need to remember is that it's every opportunity for you to market yourself as well as the property. So don't rule out luxury home magazine ads. In fact, we'll talk about print marketing in just a little bit. Now, also, the targeted just listed mailer. And this is something that is effective in every price point, and really has the ability to showcase to the neighbors that a home's just been listed. And often the neighbors will be folks that might encounter the buyer, and sometimes they'll move up themselves. And then rounding out the top 10 are newspaper display ads. And I take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I believe that the consumers who took this survey probably are thinking of the Wall Street Journal as newspaper, as opposed to a local publication. And so that's where I think their mindset is in that case. Now, interestingly, of these folks who were surveyed, 13% of them said that they actually would prefer a totally private sale with no public information made available. So they know that all of these things are necessary, but to me, this is a statement about the fact that they want as much exposure as possible while maintaining as much privacy as possible. So just something to think about. So on the flip side, just as important as the seller's marketing expectations, I think as we go about strategizing how to market our listings effectively, we need to have an understanding of the marketing resources that affluent buyers use. So same group of people who were the demographics that were interviewed in the previous survey, this group actually bought homes that were $1 million US or better within the last 2 years. And so another grain of salt is that this is not a list of the reasons that they bought the property that they bought, but it is a list of the resources that they used during their buying experience. So I think it can tell us where we need to make sure that that we are presenting our listings. So number one, look at that. It's the same for sellers and buyers. internet listing with lots of photos. And of course, video is very important, and there's lots of different applications, lots of multimedia things that we can do. But at the end of the day, most people prefer having good, high quality photographs that they can flip through. They can enlarge them, they can scroll through, but they really want lots of photographs. And then here's an interesting response, the buzz from friends. So remember on the sellers list, I talked about the real estate soiree and the just listed. Those are both opportunities to generate buzz in the community. And so this is just something to keep in mind, very high up on the list of buyers' resources. And then here we see the property brochures again. And in the case of the buyers, they considered the property website to be a sort of online property brochure. So make sure that, that you have those at the ready and super high quality, as I mentioned before. Now, buyers are using local brokerage company websites, right? And they're also using Realtor.com, Realtor.ca, those sites as well. They're looking at local newspaper classifieds. Interestingly, I think that this is also an example of where something like the New York Times classified might be what's coming to mind, as opposed to the local publication. Now, they're also looking at real estate brand websites. So definitely you have fantastic tools available to you for your brand website positionings. But interestingly, that they're appearing as well as local brokerage company websites and the larger feeds, because there's a sense from buyers that if they just look at a different site, they might find a different product. And so make sure that you're everywhere. Newspaper display ads, again, I think that that falls in the same category as the newspaper, as I've already described, in terms of what's having a global reach as opposed to your local newspaper. And then free local real estate magazines. This is very interesting. It's not to say, again, that they chose the house that they bought from seeing it in one of these local real estate magazines, but they are using it as resources, particularly if they're visiting an area before they purchase. They're looking for those nice glossies to see what kind of property will I find here? What kind of bang for my buck will there be? And it's also a great opportunity for them to look and see, gosh, that's a real estate professional that I think I'd like to work with based on how they present themselves in that publication. So lots of possibility there. And then here again, yard signs. And if you have the opportunity to have some really exceptional quality and very elegant design like the carriage trade signs, that's really an asset to you. So remember both the seller's expectations and the buyer's marketing resources when it comes time to build the actual marketing plan. These are going to want to be on our list for sure. So just as important as the right tools and the right plan, you have to start with defining the right audience, because that's going to build everything behind it. And we think that the most important part of that is defining the lifestyle, which we'll dig into shortly, identifying the best prospects based on all of the attributes of the house, then deciding how best you reach those prospects, and then telling the right story to them. So let's dig in. Defining the lifestyle. So here are photographs of 4 different properties. And so on the top left, I think you might agree with me that the lifestyle of this property is all about the wine connoisseur, right? This is a beautiful tasting room in a wine cellar that's really spectacular. And so it's going to appeal to someone definitely who enjoys wine. And then top right, well, this is not your ordinary garage, is it? So this is definitely going to be an automobile aficionado's choice, and probably not so appealing to somebody who doesn't have elaborate cars that they want to put on display like this. And then the bottom 2 photographs, both are waterfront environments, but I think you'd agree that they're very different waterfront environments. The one on the bottom left is certainly more contemporary, urban in nature, and the one on the bottom right is very traditional, more conservative, and certainly more about privacy than about all that glass and exposure to the world. And interestingly, each of these properties has the same number of bedrooms and baths, all told. But do you think that they'd appeal to the same person? We don't think so. And so it's more important than just the bricks and mortars and specifications to define the lifestyle that goes into our marketing. And so you can think of lots of different lifestyle attributes for homes. For example, equestrian estates, golf course communities, waterfront, and that can take on any number of different lifestyles depending on the type of water. Ski resorts. The photograph here is certainly someplace that I would enjoy running away to. Urban, downtown, or even green. And the list just goes on and on. But we think that the most important part of the marketing is defining the lifestyle so that you can use that to build the rest of it. So then the best prospects. So we know that different lifestyles and different types of properties are going to appeal to different types of people. So we think it's worth spending a great deal of time identifying who it is that really is going to be the right prospect for the house so that we don't waste valuable time and money marketing to the wrong prospects. So most importantly, and this I think we sometimes forget as we're trying to get a broad appeal, is that especially in luxury properties, we need to make sure that we're marketing to people who can actually afford the property. And in other price points, you want to be sure that you're marketing to the right demographic there in terms of the folks who'd be most likely to purchase a home of the price that you have. And then at what career point might this be appropriate? So can you think of young professionals who are on their way up and are scaling up in their home purchases versus people who might be nearer to retirement or into retirement, and identify which prospect is most likely going to fit with the property that you're marketing? And how about if it's a vacation seeker? Right. Certainly, some of your market areas are very popular with second home and resort clients, and so you certainly need to make sure that you're identifying if that's the target that you're going after. And then on the opposite side, the property that I showed you that was on the bottom right of the 4 photographs, that definitely speaks to somebody who's looking for privacy, and so that's going to be a prospect group that you might identify. And when I say geography, I mean if you've got a fantastic commute to a business center, or if it's extremely close to farmers markets, or if there's something about the geography that tells you who the best prospects might be, it's important to make note of that and include that in your marketing strategy. The principle of sacrifice is one of our favorite sayings within the Institute. And in a nutshell, the principle of sacrifice means that you're going to build your marketing plan to sacrifice the people who aren't going to be interested, right? So for example, if you've got something that is on the 30th floor of a high-rise, someone who is afraid of heights is not going to be interested in that. So highlighting the features that will narrow your pool of prospects is applying the principle of sacrifice rather than trying to market to everybody. So then you have to decide, once you've identified your best prospects, how is it that you're going to reach them the best? So when we talked about strategies for local as well as international or global, so direct mail has a profound impact on reaching the right prospects, and we'll talk a little bit about what's ideal for targeting local and what gets a more global approach. Certainly, print advertising is among the marketing tools, and digital advertising. So we'll dig into each of these just a little bit to get a sense of how you might leverage these things in a way that perhaps you didn't think about it before. So if you recall my comment about high quality brochures and postcards, that is the number one secret to effective direct mail. If it's not stunning, then you run the risk that the audience is just going to toss it in the garbage. So the key to effective direct mail with brochures and postcards is that they are stunning. Outstanding photography, really heavy, dramatic stock material, so that it feels good when they handle it from their mailbox and grabs their attention so that they want to look at it. And you can utilize the brochures as self-mailers or in very nice envelopes. But a lot of people don't think to use the brochure in a direct mail strategy. They defer immediately to postcards. And while I agree that postcards are an important part of the direct mail strategy, utilizing the brochures for more than just handing to a prospect who's looking at the house can be very, very effective. We like to say that your marketing is the first impression that you're making on people, and so we believe that to be true about the properties that you're representing as well. So these are some outstanding first impressions, and these can be utilized to mail in a variety of different ways. So we think that the principles of anything for direct mail is lots of good photos that grab their attention, and photos that are familiar to them, something that they'll identify with. Targeted headlines to grab their attention and make them want to read what's inside. And then lots of good copy. That's the story, which we'll talk about again here in a few minutes. But we think that good copy is really important, and that it be grammatically correct and really well done. And I can't stress enough that the quality of the paper and the reproduction is tremendously important. And so, who is it that you direct mail to? Well, neighbors. We mentioned this previously. Neighbors in a in either a similar price point or relevant, as I mentioned, someone who might be moving up, moving down. This is a really effective way to reach a local audience who may not be looking at real estate material in other way. And then, as we talked about, identifying those best prospects. So, what about executives who are moving to an area, or folks that might be interested in acquiring a resort or second home property in your market? And so I think that utilizing mailing lists of individuals who are culled by either income or net worth, or business lists that are available from many of the trade publications, and doing some targeted direct mailing beyond your local area, especially beyond your local farm area, really can be an effective way to reach the right prospect. And then the appropriate real estate professionals. I don't know about you, but I get hundreds of emails every day from other real estate professionals who are sending me their listing. And I exercise my delete key to no end during the day, because if it isn't relevant to me, if it isn't something that I'm looking for, I'm really not interested. And they're very generic and they all look the same. And so it's just delete, delete, delete. However, when another real estate professional actually sends me in the mail a beautiful property brochure that I can't help but look at and appreciate the quality of the material, that's the kind of thing that catches my eye. So it's another way that you can reach the right realtors in your target sphere of influence. And then professionals with the appropriate clientele. I like to refer to this as your professional farm. In our industry, we spend a lot of time talking about farming, geography to build market share in a particular area. But I think that we should treat a number of professionals in our market area as a different type of farm, and we need to communicate with them regularly. So CPAs, trust attorneys, fiduciaries, all of the people who have the kind of clientele who would be the right match for the buyers of our properties. So think about direct mailing. Again, it has to be very nicely done. It has to stand out, but mailing to professionals who have the right clientele. So let's talk for a minute about print advertising, and I'm kind of putting these in two contexts, because print advertising often now has a component, and really you should be looking for a combination. Whenever you take a print ad, you ought to look for digital leverage as part of that advertising. But magazines like Unique Homes, and here is an example of one of their global issues. So if you can identify in a print publication what the content, what the feature stories are going to be, you can choose the one that has the most likelihood of reaching the right prospect. Right. So again, I'll go back to making sure that you're addressing the right prospects and not just advertising in as many places as possible. And so on the right-hand side is a snapshot of Mansion Global through the Wall Street Journal, and is another example of something that has a print presence, but also a digital online presence as well. So certainly look for print publications that are being distributed to the appropriate people, and certainly look to leverage your relationships with your brand and those of you that are members of the Institute for preferred rates. We know that it costs money to be effective, but we certainly want you to spend your money wisely. Now, digital advertising, so many different opportunities for digital advertising these days. Property websites, as I mentioned, are a very powerful tool and certainly available to us. Downloadable brochures. Among the features that people are looking for is either downloadable in PDF format, or in a platform where it's a digital engagement that the reader can actually swoosh, flip the page, and it mimics the sensation of actually flipping a page in the magazine. Those are very, very popular. And digital advertising really gives you the opportunity for the most broad distribution. And this is global, and this is really what sellers are looking for these days. So I want you to pay particular attention to digital advertising. Excuse me. But again, make sure that you're spending wisely and being smart with the maximum distribution to the right audiences. So another type of digital advertising that you might be taking advantage of, and that you should be, YouTube videos. So if you don't have a YouTube channel, I suggest that you hire a teenager, and they will make you one. But you can have fantastic videos, but if you don't get them out in good distribution, then they have less likelihood of being seen. And YouTube is certainly the most universal means of distributing video. And mini movies also. This is something that we talk about in the Institute's training. Mini movies, rather than just still photographs of properties that are set to set to music and automatically flip through. We're talking about actual productions with casts and really telling a story in 3 minutes or less that engages the audience and really makes them feel as though they're experiencing the house and what it would be like to be there. So mini movies are a great way to really take video and real estate video to the next level. And again, YouTube being the most appropriate way to get that out. And blogs, it's interesting. Blogs have been kind of cyclical. Everything was in the blogosphere, and then people backed off a little bit. And I think that speaks to we sometimes don't carry on with what we started, and finding new content becomes a challenge. But I'm seeing more and more blog activity, and these are excellent ways to tell a story, to feature a certain attribute. When I showed you the photographs, for example, of the property with the fantastic wine cellar. So if you have a blog, you can dedicate an entire blog post to something that's specific to the wine cellar, or something that's specific to that fantastic garaging. So you can tell individual stories about a property through blogs in a way that give you much more material and lots of what we call Google juice, search engine material. So don't overlook blogs. And if you used to do some blogging and you haven't in a while, think about getting back into that. Again, it's a great way for broad digital distribution. And we can't overlook social media. Years ago, I remember thinking and hearing in the real estate world that, oh, social media, this is not going to be a fit. And certainly the affluent buyers are not using social media. And that, I think that you'll agree with me, that has changed. And so it's important that you leverage the platforms of social media that best fit with your marketing persona, your style, your target demographics, and really spend some time making sure that that social media is part of your marketing strategy. And just as I mentioned with blog posts being an opportunity to highlight certain features of a property, social media is as well. Instagram, those of you that are using Instagram, you know, the power of the photo is incredible, and short, small snippets that are featuring something something unique, as opposed to trying to be the overall marketing piece for a property. For example, occasionally when I arrive at one of my listings to meet a prospective buyer, I will find that a flower bed has just exploded with riotous flowers, and perfectly hit in the sun, and that's the kind of thing. Snap a picture and do a quick social media post about those kinds of moments and experiences at your listings, and that gives you more and more opportunities to continue to market a property once you've done your brochures and your mailings and that sort of thing. So keeping fresh marketing opportunities available is certainly something that social media can help us with. Now, also, when we talk about digital advertising, I'm hopeful that that all of you are familiar with Proxio Pro. Proxio is a global tool for real estate professionals, and historically, Proxio Pro has been, well, I like to refer to it as a LinkedIn platform for real estate professionals. It's not a public-facing website. It is for real estate professionals internally, and you can network with other real estate professionals from around the world. So this is an important tool, though, to showcase to your sellers who are looking for that international exposure. So if, for example, they believe that that the buyer is going to come from, let's say, China or perhaps Germany, you have the ability to, using Proxio Pro, network and share your property with real estate professionals in the target country where you believe that the buyer might come from. So a really powerful tool in sharing with your sellers how you're going to expose them internationally. Now, they do have the opportunity for you to upload your listings to Proxio Pro. Remember that you're showcasing them to other real estate professionals. And currently, it looks a little bit like this, right? This has never been the most important feature of Proxio Pro. So you can see if you pay for premium listings, you get slightly more graphic interest, and then those that are standard listings are appearing below. I happen to know that Proxio Pro is undergoing some significant improvements, and on their beta site for the next version that's going to be unveiled, the way that these properties appear to other real estate professionals around the globe is going to look more like this. And so that to me is a dramatic improvement and a dramatic enhancement of the benefits of Proxio Pro. So again, this is showcasing your properties to other real estate professionals around the globe. And then Proxio Pro is also your avenue, along with ICREA, the International Consortium for Real Estate Associations, to have your properties marketed on worldproperties.com. And this is not an automatic propagation, so I would encourage you to make sure that in your marketing consultations with prospective sellers, that you make sure to highlight the fact that that your properties will be exposed to worldproperties.com, which is a public-facing website that is reaching an absolutely global audience.
And I think, Tammy, I just wanted to chat with you on that.
Yes.
In terms of the Proxio Pro and CREA. We have chatted about that. I think there is some link with CREA and Proxio Pro. I'm just reading now, like, you get some basic features of that as part of your Canadian Real Estate Association membership.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's important for people to know on the line as well, that it is accessible to them.
Right. Exactly. And half the battle is actually taking advantage of it.
Yep.
So again, it's a tool that not everybody can say that they have access to, and so this is something that really can differentiate you when you are competing for listings in a marketplace. I do have to say, you know, the shot that I have up on the screen right now, when I grabbed this for the presentation, I had to laugh about the bicycle in the bottom right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and so you know, I was kind of scratching my head, and I was spending time. I like the diversity of properties and streetscapes of the others, and so I wasn't sure whether I would point out that photograph of the sparse room with the bicycle and use it as an example of this is not good photography, or perhaps if it's an urban flat and is appealing to a millennial who wants to bike to work, you know, that might be a different marketing avenue.
Well, my first thought when you said that is like, could that be then in San Francisco, right?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you might be able to stage it better if that's the story that you're trying to tell. But would you agree that that certainly stands out as the singular photograph that is marketing that property that's $1.6 million?
Yeah, probably not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could have put a bike out front.
Right. You could have put a bike out front, or you know, you could have done any number of creative things with that bike if that's really what the selling point was. But again, it goes back to my point about telling the story. So it'll be a nice segue when we get to that spot. But I'm not quite sure what story that photograph is trying to tell. On the other hand, though, on the middle photograph there, that is, yeah, the buildings. I mean, that's fantastic, because that tells you everything about where that is and what kind of lifestyle that is. So in any event, just think about what you're saying with your photographs or what you're not saying. And so make sure that you are utilizing all of the opportunities that you have for your digital advertising, and be sure those of you that participate in the carriage trade program, that you are taking advantage of things like the Rob Report, as you see here, again, with tremendous digital exposure that is global and truly is reaching those prospects around the globe. And that's what your sellers are concerned about from that perspective. And then, of course, also you have the opportunity through Carriage Trade to have your listings exposed on luxuryrealestate.com. Also a variety of different digital and print opportunities for you there. And again, this is, if you're working in the luxury arena, this is something that that again can set you apart from others that might be competing for your listings who don't have access to this, because it's not something that everyone has. So please be sure that you explore that opportunity if you have properties in that price point. But regardless of the price point that you have, I want you to make sure that you utilize your luxury toolbox, and the toolbox that has the materials that you need for the price that you're working in. And you couldn't have a better opportunity than with your own firm, with your own brand. So please make sure that you're taking advantage of that. And I'm certain that I am preaching to the choir here, because you probably wouldn't be on this webinar if you weren't taking advantage of what is offered to you. And then those of you that are members of the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing, please make sure that you are checking out all of the ever-changing, ever-growing tools that are available to you as members. And I just did a quick grab of the screen with just specifically to marketing properties. So you'll see here certainly some of the Proxio Pro and some of the negotiated rates for members with regard to publications that might be reaching the right folks that you're looking for. So telling the right story, so important, and I think you know where I'm going with this. And we really spend a lot of time focused on this in the training. So I'm just going to try and hit some really key points in the short time that we have together. We already know that we need to identify the lifestyle of the property. That's the first step in building the right story. What's unique about this home, right? And it could be you know, it could be something that's tangible or something that's intangible, but what's unique about this home that others can't say, right? We have to identify those special things. And remember the principle of sacrifice, and it tells you that the negative might be the reason to buy. So I used the example of someone who might be afraid of heights. Well, they might be the perfect buyer for a first floor condo that has no view, right? So the negative to one person might be the reason that someone else buys. And so we think that it's important that you address those things in the story rather than just trying to make something seem like all things to all people, right? You've got to find the folks who are going to be the right prospects, and then speak to your target audience. So what I mean by this is be clear and concise in the language in your marketing. Don't use a lot of real estate abbreviations that sound like gibberish. Speak in complete sentences. And if you have a short amount of space that you can use, just make it count and speak to the right prospect in that. If you're marketing to millennials, you're going to use different language than if you're marketing to boomers or retirees. So really think about who it is that you're speaking to and speak to them in a way that's going to resonate with them. So then you're going to put all these things together, and you're going to create an actual marketing plan up front. And this is going to be something that you're going to present to the seller, and it's going to be part of what helps you win the listing. So first, using the principles that we've just talked about, you want to list the elements of the ideal plan. If money were no object, what would you do to market this property? And just put it on a blank sheet of paper, maybe a spreadsheet, and then set a priority for each of those elements. So go back to maybe the seller's expectations and buyer's resources and say, okay, so a good internet listing, good photography, good copy, maybe these are the things that are the most important, and perhaps flying the banner plane might not be on the most important list. So set a priority, and then you need to determine what each of those elements costs, right? And so the cost of your photography, the cost of an ad in Unique Homes, the cost of the Rob Report digital exposure, you put out to the side of that item how much it's going to cost. And then you have to decide, only you can decide how much you're willing to spend to market a property. And it's going to be different for each one. If you have great market share in a particular area, you may not wish to spend as much on an individual property marketing. But if this is a way for you to build market share in an area that you want to get more business in, you may be willing to spend more on a particular property. But either way, you have to decide what you're willing to spend based on the compensation that you expect to receive. And then you add up the cost of the elements in order of priority, and you draw a line when you hit the point at where you've reached what you're willing to spend, right? So you've just built your marketing plan, and you've got clear goals of what you're going to do. And anything below that, you can ask the seller to participate in those options, or it can be, fee plus, right? But this is a great strategy to develop a marketing plan. And then when you put it in paper, it's much easier to implement, right? You've got a guideline to follow, and you can tick these things off one by one. And if you do it in a strategic way, you'll be having new ideas of things to do along the way in the listing, so that if it's not sold right away, you've got your next strategy and your next strategy and your next strategy, and you keep the seller informed in all of these ways. And it really is a great way to manage the marketing for the long run. So to summarize what we've talked about today, and gosh, I can't believe the time goes so quickly. First, understand your seller's expectations, define the right audience, build the right story, and then create and implement the marketing plan. And those of you that want to continue to elevate, if any of these principles have been of interest to you, remember that if you haven't already, you can take an exclusive online training to take the Institute's training course. And we'll really drill down on all sorts of those things. So you've got a special price and a special opportunity there. Mike, do I hear you chiming in on that?
Yeah, no, I have a slide on that as well. So,
aha!
Yeah,
All right. So in any event, lots of stuff all condensed into one short time. So. That's what I have to say today about marketing your listings like a luxury agent, regardless of the price point, and just to focus on elevating your exposure.
Awesome. Well, thanks. And I encourage people to, again, type in their questions in the chat. We will ask them. I had a couple questions around the CREA and the agreement with worldproperties.com, and I mentioned in the chat as well, as part of Royal LePage, we do have a partnership with luxuryrealestate.com. So that is something out there for international exposure. I wanted to ask, and this, by the way, so in terms of the certified luxury home marketing specialist, as Tammy pointed out, we do offer, it is the official designation of our Carriage Trade Luxury Properties Marketing Program, and we receive a 15% discount plus an additional year membership to the Institute. So you can find information on that in the RLP network. If you see the link below, rlpnetwork.com under marketing, Carriage Trade Luxury Designation. Of course, you can always email us, learningservices@royallepage.ca. If you go, where do I find that? We'll help you find that. And information about the luxuryrealestate.com would be there as well. Thank you, Stephanie, for putting the link in the chat. So if you're not in the chat or you're not live, you can check it out on RLP Network or send us a quick email. What I wanted to ask you, and I actually had a number of questions for you. And again, I encourage people to type their questions in the chat. One thing I wanted to ask is, when you were talking about defining the lifestyle, you were talking about green and golf courses and stuff. And I know one of the things that Coldwell Banker is doing in the US is their smart home kit. And I was wondering if smart home technology is starting to creep into this luxury, because I was kind of surprised not to see it in there.
Yes, it is, and I have a list on that lifestyle section. I actually have a list that's about 30 different types just to get you started. So I just picked a few for that. We are definitely seeing smart home technology, and again, that's at every price point. We're seeing influences of that, but in the upper tier, in particular, really very sophisticated smart home strategies, and I think that that's very appealing to a broad number of people, particularly those that are top executives, and they may travel quite a bit, and they may wish to have that remote control or access of their properties. I actually have a customer who I'll be meeting in person for the first time, and we have met already just via her digital equipment at her property that she was able to allow me to go in to see the property with her in another state, and we've never met face to face. So yeah, so we're definitely seeing that, and that's a whole area where real estate professionals need to make sure that they stay educated on the nuances of that smart home technology.
Gotcha. I was curious about that. And then one of the slides that you mentioned earlier, and I'm surprised nobody asked this, but you were talking about setting that budget and sticking to that budget and having that bottom line. And then, like you said, if you get below that line, then maybe you ask for seller participation in marketing. And I wanted to know, I mean, that I was like, I don't know how, and I would do that. Like, how would I go about saying, hey, here's the deal. I used up the marketing budget. Can you chip in some cash and we'll do some extra stuff?
And so that would not be the way that you would want to deliver it.
Oh, no. Oh boy.
So if I were going to role play on that for a second, I might have that page of marketing ideas separate that isn't in my presentation, and I might say, when I was sharing the plan with a prospective seller, and they say, well, what about such and such, or couldn't you do a bigger ad, or that sort of thing, and that's a point where you have the opportunity to say, oh, I'm so glad that you that you mentioned that, and so based on the compensation, these are this is the plan that that I'm prepared to undertake. And so if there were other things that you'd like, I could prepare a premium plan for you that might be a +1 or something like that. So you can do it in that way, or the way that I have done it the most effectively, and where it comes up for me most often, is if I'm prepared to take a half-page ad in one of those fine print publications, and the seller says, I really think that we need a full-page ad. And if I don't think that that's a wise expenditure, then I will offer to them to share my preferred rates for both the advertising space and the graphic design. And if they're willing to pay the difference between what I was prepared to pay and the cost of the full page ad, I would be most pleased to reimburse them that cost at the time of closing if the buyer came from that ad.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot better than how I would have
lots of different ways that you could approach that. And then really in some cases, you can take that strategy for building the plan, draw the line, and so let's say, for example, that there are things below that line that you really, really wanted to do, but that didn't fall into that. When you're negotiating with a prospective seller, you can say, you know what, for you, I would toss in this item here that's on my priority, the premium list. So you can use that for some leverage, or you could create a multi-tiered offering of services. So different levels of marketing based on different levels of compensation.
Okay, I was wondering that too. That was another question that I had in terms of that tiering of stuff.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, again, I'm waiting for questions. I don't know what's going on, so I'll just keep asking mine. But I'll remind everybody as well, we do have our redesigned webinar library. So you'll find this under the RLP Network, training, webinar training, sales success. Here you can go in, you can sort by presenter, topic, air date, all that kind of information to find all our great webinars. At this point, I think we're up to, over 48 hours, somewhere in that neighborhood of of content. So you got a couple days to sit down and just watch it. And I'll also remind people that we got a couple coming up October 4th. We are doing a webinar called Smart Studio, taking you to the next level, kind of highlighting what we've done with Smart Studio, our internal CRM that everybody has access to, and what developments we've done, as well as how to create custom drip campaigns. And then we have another sales success coming up featuring Richard Robbins on October 11th. The topic hasn't been 100% chosen, but in terms of that, I was talking about those challenging conversations with clients, given how much things have changed. Okay, so let's have a look here. I have Marc Beaubien, and he is asking, how much do you spend on a luxury listing marketing? So that was a question that I was wondering too. Is there a percentage? He's from, so Marc is from Royal-Lepage Village in Montreal. So how much do you spend on luxury listing marketing?
So as I mentioned when we hit that slide, there's no right answer. You need to decide how much of your compensation you need to take home to satisfy your personal and business budget. And again, I'll reiterate that if it's a listing that you want more of, you might be willing to spend more on an individual listing than you would on another listing that you perhaps did not want more of. But so some people are better prepared to leverage marketing dollars for the long run, right? If you've had a fantastic year thus far and you've got a little extra to spend, that you might be able to do so to try something new and creative. So everybody's situation is different. And there really isn't a right answer. I would suggest though that the wrong answer is nothing. But you'd be surprised. I mean, a lot of real estate professionals are like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to spend money on this? So we're so used to leveraging free products and things that come in tandem with our with lender partners or things like that, that sometimes we do forget that we are indeed supposed to spend things. And I think that also your budget should really be, should reflect the quality of the property. So if you don't have a lot of money to spend, then spend it on something small but spectacular, right? So if you're marketing a luxury property and you don't have a lot to spend, I would rather that you got 50 knock 'em dead brochures and get them in the hands of the right people than to get 500 inexpensive, lesser quality pieces and distribute them more broadly.
Would there ever be a recommendation on percentage of, like, if there's, like, let's say a brand new agent just got his first listing and he's like, I don't know, would there be, like, would you say 15% or 20? Like, is there a maximum? I know it's not quite like it.
So I really can't answer that with a percentage, because even as I think about it, I visualize that brand new agent in my mind. So that's going to depend on their splits. It's going to depend on your individual relationship with your brokerage. It's going to depend on how much of your actual commission you are taking home versus what you're paying, in terms of, the arrangement. So, so that's a little more nuanced than I can answer.
And I wanted to ask in terms of that, in terms of the because one of the things that I've had people and agents tell me often is that, well, we should advertise all our listings like they were luxury listings. And I'm like,
there is a very rightness to that. But to the same degree, I think, think about this. There are some types of properties, right? So if you are representing a resort property that perhaps is remote, maybe, mountain, something like that, if you show up in a suit and tie, then that's the wrong approach. So sometimes people in a more moderate price range react poorly to if something is overbearing. So I'm 100% in agreement with the principle that there should be a standard of professionalism and quality for the marketing of every single one of our listings. But I think that there is a difference, and there does come a time for a level of elevation as the price point goes up.
Yeah, that's something that I was kind of like, I don't know that I like it. Like, if you have a one of the listings, like with the garage you had, it's like, yeah, I'm probably going to spend a little bit more on the on
Yeah,
marketing.
yeah, exactly. But you're not going to spend that additional money on an ad that's targeted to reach everybody and their brother. You're going to spend the money to put that into an automobile aficionado publication, right?
Yeah.
You follow my logic on that? You've got to define the best prospects and figure out how to reach them. So just it's about thoughtfulness and really being mindful of who it is that that's your likely buyer and how you're going to reach them.
Yeah, I agree, Sarah. I'm just going to send us a quick email answering other questions in terms of carriage trade in the chat. Oh, a lot of questions. So let me just see. Do I have any other questions as well? I mean, yeah, I wanted to ask about, I mean, that's really it. I was really curious about that smart home stuff. So it's very interesting to hear you chat about it a little bit further. And the principle of sacrifice. So let me see. I'll give people another little second to ask any further questions. But if not, I'm sure you've got many other things to do today, Tammy.
I still have some hurricane cleanup to do.
Yay! Yeah, so I mean, it was interesting when we were talking before the webinar. Tammy was telling me about it. She was checking in on all her clients' houses, sending them photos. And if you weren't here when Tammy did one of her webinars on delivering a concierge level service, that was a really interesting webinar where she really talked about that level, that upper tier level of service. And I would encourage you to go into the RLP network under the training, webinar training, sales success. Go seek that out. That was a really cool webinar as well, where she talked about kind of how to deliver that extra on top level of service that really speaks directly to luxury.
Yeah, that would indeed, Mike, be an example of that level of service.
I was thinking about the amount of, like, well, I mean, you know, it's not like you're not there yourself and have your own worries. So I was thinking about how, wow, like that's, you know, I know I'd be super ecstatic to have that. So
there were a lot of people all around the world who were most pleased that I was their eyes and ears.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And again, knowing that you have to worry about your own home as well as that's pretty cool. So, I mean, I'm not seeing any more questions. If anybody has any other questions, of course, you can email us, learningservices@royallepage.ca. I've mentioned to a couple people who have asked, like, oh, where do I get this? Or where do I find the certified luxury home marketing specialist? Obviously, the link is there, but send us an email, learningservices@royallepage.ca. We can give you more information about carriage trade. We can give you more information about certified luxury home marketing specialist. And if anything, we can reach out to Tammy and ask her any questions. So I want to thank you, Tammy, firstly. Thanks so much. Again, I know I gave you a big ramp up there, but at the same time, you always deliver. You always come with the goods.
Oh, well, thank you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, I hope you'll come back next month and tune in again for our next Sales Success webinar. So with that, I want to thank everybody and see you next month.